We are recording. All right. So to begin, to get ourselves set up, do as we typically do, is to begin in a heart opening. How I like to set this up, because I have a little bit of a thin like bolster, I like to prop it up a little bit and make a little bit of, say, an incline bench, if you will. So you can place your blocks as so, or if you have a little bit of a fatter bolster, then you probably wouldn't need to do just. And then to set yourself up, position your hips or your bottom so that it's a few inches away from the bolster. This gives a little bit of freedom to the low back. And then you'll want to lay all the way back. Once you lay it back, if you feel any pinchiness to the low back, that's good information. It just means that the hips need to come a little further forward, or you need to lower your props from there. Tuck the shoulders underneath the base of the heart and let the arms spread wide, wherever feels most comfortable for you. Ensure that the torso, head, and neck is fully supported. And then again, any variation of the legs here is welcomed and encouraged. So you can have the knees bent, feet flat onto the floor. That feels more supportive for the low back. You could stretch the legs long, a little release through the front of the hip. If you're craving a little inner groin opening, you could crisscross the legs or take bound angle where the soles of the feet come together and your knees then fan out to the side. Make any last little adjustments that you might like to have. I'm going to pop everyone on mute, but if you ever have any questions, you can always bring yourself off or pop a question into the chat. All right, so settle in, fine tune anything that needs adjusting. And then begin to direct your mind's attention into the rhythm and the cadence of the breath. As you breathe here, feel the wave of breath flood in as you inhale. And as you exhale, feel the wave of breath retreat out. No need to consciously control or direct the breath in any way at this time. Just simply notice and feel. And how there's a whole myriad of movement, even amidst the stillness as you breathe. And the breath can serve as a vessel to draw your awareness inward and to connect the body and the mind. And now that you've had a few moments here to settle into the breath, the body, begin to invite an intention. What is it that you most wish to nourish in this time? Is this a time for you to be more compassionate with yourself, maybe a little less demanding or expecting? To explore what it's like to be off the hook? And to nourish back into your being. And so, whatever it is that you're calling in with a little imagination, place your intention to the breath so that every breath bathes you with all that you're calling in and with your intention. And we'll be here for several more breaths. I'll start to get quieter and quieter with time. Leave all responsibility of time to me. Just simply breathe and be. At any point in time, should the mind wander or drift, just know that that's a natural thing for the mind to do. After all, how would we get through our day without the mind thinking and planning and reminding us what's next? Every time you find the mind wandering, it's an opportunity for you to allow the intellect to rest, to redirect it back into the breath, and to strengthen this practice of letting the mind get quiet. And there's always a moment to hook onto the thought or to let it go with the same ease in which it arrived. And you get to choose which thoughts to rise or to pass by. Follow this next breath. Feel it expand all the way into the center of the heart. Feel it lift and inflate the collarbones. With a sense of ease, let the breath completely dissipate back out of you. If the knees are drawn wide, gently assist them back together again. In fact, you could let the knees touch and toe heel the feet a little wider to create a slight internal rotation. Here, you can even awaken the body a little bit more by taking a big, luxurious stretch with the arms. Stretch them overhead, even roll out the wrists or wiggle the fingers. And then moving at a snail's pace, begin to transition all the way over onto your side, right or left, you get to choose. Then from with the strength of your hands, begin to press your way forward and up, coming to child's pose or preparing for child's pose. Here, the big toes can touch, the knees can draw super wide, maybe even as wide as the edges of the mat, wherever it feels most comfortable. And then sit back towards your heels. You can use your bolster and props in a similar way, just letting your torso drape forward. If the floor seems far away, you can use your blocks and prop up the bolster even higher. And if there's any tenderness to the knees, if it's in sort of from pressure from the weight of the body or the firmness of the floor, it always place a little extra cushion, an extra blanket underneath. And if it's from bending the knees, if you're starting to feel almost a tug through the front of the knees, then you could take a blanket roll or a hand towel and place it to the back of the knees. This will decrease the bend in the knees or the flexion and take some of the pressure off the front of the front tendons or the patellar tendon of the knee. And then any place that feels comfortable for your head and neck, you could turn your head left or right or bring your forehead to rest. You can always reposition your head at any point in time. You might decide to set all props aside and choose another variation of child's that is more inviting for you. You get to choose. Then once you settle in, once again, blink the eyes closed and direct your mind's attention back into the breath. Depending on the posture you're in, the experience of the breath will shift and change a little. Here you might notice the back body expanding as you inhale. Think quality of wave moving throughout the body, and how upon the exhale, the body sinks into the shape just a little more deeply and even sweetly. And as you continue to breathe here, can you still hear the echo of your intention right there in the breath? Each breath, a whisper of everything you're calling in and nurturing within. And know that distractions will trickle in from time to time. And every time they arrive, it's an opportunity for you to strengthen this practice of letting it go, to watch the visceral response of the body, the mind, happening emotionally and energetically, and to choose to release that, access the breath to create and cultivate more calm within. Feel this last wave of breath expand the entire back body. Let it flood all the way to the back of the heart. And feel the body again soften with this next exhale you breathe. From there, slowly start to walk your body back upright and set your bolster off to the side. Place your blocks towards the front of the mat and on the highest setting, or you can always adjust it a little lower if that feels best for your body. Then shift forward onto all fours. And if your body's craving any little movement, a little cow, feel free to do so. Or you might extend one leg straight back and then the other, just to give the knees and the hips a little release. And then eventually step your right foot in between the hands, aligning your right knee on top of the right ankle or slightly further back. As far as you can, begin to inch your left foot a little bit further back, as far as it will reach. And if that feels like a lot of pressure on the knee, then again, by all means, you could fold in the outer edge of the mat. You could add a little extra push. In fact, we'll have 2, 3 poses here on the knees. So make sure that you have everything within reach so that if if you need to come out, you always can. If you need a little extra cushion, you've got everything within reach. And then from there, start to ease the hips slightly back and create a slight pelvic tilt. So you're going to aim your tailbone slightly towards the earth so that as you start to then lean the hips forward, it targets the front of the hip and it's not necessarily coming into the low back. You're not collapsing into the spine. So there is a little bit of activation through the abdominals and a little bit of positioning through the inner thigh and hip. Then as you lean the hips forward, think of drawing the right hip slightly back and then releasing softly the left hip forward, targeting a little sensation through the front of the left thigh and the front of the left hip flexor or front of the left hip. With the body and eyes more upright, it can be more challenging to concentrate the mind and to cultivate relaxation in the body. So I invite you to still the gaze or close the eyes completely. Send your awareness back into the breath again. You can continue to explore the body expanding and retracting with each breath you breathe. Or you might shift your focus to finding the subtle pause at the very top of the breath. Pausing there a moment and then allowing the inhale to naturally spill over to the exhale. Exploring then the bottom of the breath, pausing there, and then begin the cycle again. Stay here for another 3 to 5 more breaths. Leave the count entirely to me. Just concentrate and breathe. In fact, you might use your imagination and envision the breath flooding to the lower left quadrant of your abdomen, massaging the hip flexors from within. One more inhale. One last exhale. The eyes are closed, blink them open, and begin to walk your hands to the inside of the right foot. For me, my right leg always needs a little release, so you can pull the hips back if you're craving a little bit of a flush, and then sink right back in. From there, take your left shin and swing it entirely over to the left side, and begin to walk your body or your torso about, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 inches over to the left so that your upper body is more at about a 45-degree angle. Your right knee and shin, toes, everything is still pointing forward. You've just adjusted the torso to come to about a 45-degree angle. And then from there, you can stay upright. You can lower partway onto your forearms using your block to meet you halfway, or you can even lower all the way to the floor. Check back in with your right knee. And if the right knee has fallen inward in any way, readjust it so that it's aiming towards the front of your mat, or rewind the pose to come more upright through the upper body. Allow the posture and the time within it to unravel everything that's happening in your inner groin, your outer hip, and explore all the places in your body that you might be able to soften, even if it's just 2% more. Allowing the fingertips to uncurl, the jaw to relax and release, even the little furrow between the brow to widen, and grow supple. Deepen back into the experience of breathing once again. And last full breath here. Rise from there back up onto your hands and begin to reposition yourself to face forward, hands framing your right foot. You can straighten out the left shin, repositioning the left leg straight back. From there, shift the hips back, align them with your left knee, and then wiggle your right foot a little further forward with a little micro bend into the knee. Imagine you had a little puppy's tail and flip it overhead. This will help to flatten the low back and isolate the opening into the right hamstring or the back of the right leg. From there, extend the sternum forward and drape the rib cage down the length of the thigh. Then place the hands, the blocks to wherever it feels most supportive at this time. Once again, focus the gaze, set the drishti. Return your awareness back inward by blinking the eyes closed. Concentrating your awareness back into the experience of breathing. At any point in time, if you need to shift out, just know that you can do so, take a little pressure off the left knee, and come right back in time. One more inhale here. Last full exhale. Begin to shift your weight forward, align the right knee on top of the right ankle. Walk your hands and blocks a little further forward. And then toe your right foot across, lay your right shin down at about a 45-degree angle, give or take, and slide your left leg as far back as it will reach. From there, you can use your blocks to support you. You might even reach for your bolster, place it on top of your blocks. If you'd like a little added support to the outer right hip, you can slide a little cushion to the outer right buttock between the hip and the floor. As much as possible, let the upper body recline its way forward. Encourage the head to be supported. This will help to optimize the release. You might even rock a little from side to side just to encourage the thigh bone to move in and around the hip socket to find a sweet spot to remain. And this is one of my favorite openings for the outer glute, the outer hip, as well as the inner groin. And having said that, sometimes it can put a lot of pressure on the knee. So if you're finding that to be the case, one of my favorite alternatives would be to come to Thunderbolt or Lightning Bolt, where the back knee comes forward. The right shin can then move forward, and now the entire outer right leg and hip is on the floor. And then you can fold forward from there. So there's a little less tug to the knee. Another alternative would be to come to either a seated figure four, or you could lay back, whichever you prefer. Check back in with the breath, and if it's shallowed in any way, enliven it again. A simple act of observing the breath and concentrating the mind into the breath will naturally lengthen the inhales and the exhales. This will help to optimize oxygen in the body, helps to quiet the thoughts in the mind. And helps to shift the body from a more sympathetic to a parasympathetic state. And this is what helps with the relief response as well as healing. Follow these next several breaths all the way to the very top of the inhale and bottom of the exhale. Begin to walk your hands back up. Lift your torso back upright. Curl your back set of toes under and inch your back knee a little further forward just for added stability. And then unravel your right leg and extend it straight back into either a three-legged table. You might touch the toes down, stretch back into the calf. Even spin the right heel down and stretch the right arm forward for a little release to the outer hip, as well as the hip flexor coming into your half circle. From there, return back to your neutral table. You can swivel out the hips, even move a little through the spine. And then set your bolster to the side momentarily. Reach for your blocks once again. From there, step the left foot forward in between the hands, aligning your left knee either on top of the ankle or slightly further back. Inch your right leg as far back as it will reach. And again, check in if you'd like to have a little added push or support to the bottom of the right knee. Inch the hips back an inch or two, and then add that subtle sort of drawing of the tailbone towards the earth, zipping of the hips towards the ribs, a slight pelvic tilt. With that in mind, draw the left hip back as you ease and release the right hip forward. Your blocks are there to extend the arms to offer you support so that the right hip can rest its way towards the front of the mat. Steady the gaze or blink the eyes closed, and then dive your awareness back into the breath. Take this next breath in. Feel it move all the way out. And blink the eyes open. Place the blocks to the inside of the left foot. Swing your right shin and right foot towards the left side of your mat, and then a little quarter turn towards the right. Back, I'll demonstrate this one side on so that you can have another viewpoint as well. So position your torso slightly to the right, your choice to stay upright as you target the inner groin, the outer hip. You can lower part way onto your blocks or all the way onto the earth. If your left knee has started to fall in and collapse, it's good information. You can reposition it or come upright to refine the alignment. And then blink your eyes closed. Send your awareness once again back into the. Relax the jaw once again. Encourage the heart to melt towards the earth as the shoulders wrap back behind it. And when the mind drifts, simply call it back to the breath again. One more inhale. One more exhale. Rise all the way back up. Reposition yourself to face forward, left toes forward, left knee forward, right toes straight back. And then shift the hips back once again, this time in line with the right knee. Wiggle your left foot and heel a little ways further forward with a slight micro bend into the knee. Flip your tail over your head to flatten the low back to protect your lumbar, your SI joint. And then drape your torso down the length of the left thigh. Targeting the back of the left leg, particularly the left hamstring. Balancing the musculature, the fascia, the deep connective tissues that surround the pelvis and hip, which will also help to free up the low back and spine. Explore all the ways you can soften, particularly for these last few breaths. And the body has patterns of holding, and it's with time, breathing, and mindfulness, we have this opportunity to nurture the release. Experience this next inhale and exhale like it was the only breath that was ever gifted to you in this lifetime. Savor it completely. And then begin to shift your way forward. Toe heel your left foot across the mat to about a 45-degree angle, give or take. Sink your hips back. Let your hips settle towards the earth. And eventually fold forward either onto your block, forearms, or somewhere in between, perhaps the use of your blister. Again, while this is often a favorite to release the hip, know that you have many other options. So if there's another variation, feel free to take it, especially if you're getting any feedback from the knee. Last full breath here. And slowly begin to rise all the way back up. Eventually extend the left leg straight back, unravel it completely. Again, you can keep the legs straight, the toes down, even explore a little bit of a side body stretch and release to the hip flex. Returning yourself back onto all fours. And then you'll want to position yourself to face the long side of your mat. And in fact, I'll demonstrate this both ways. I like personally to have a bolster right in front of me. It would obstruct my view, so I'm not going to use one in this example. And if you know that your knees are a little bit tender, grab a couple pillows or fold in the outer edges of the mat so that you have a little extra cushion. Then from there, take the knees out as wide as you can. So this is going to target the inner groin. Big toes can touch, and then you can sit your hips back towards your heels. So it's like the widest child's pose, if you will. And there's 3 different iterations that will move through this, but you could always stay with this variation. And then from there, if you had the bolster right in front of you, you could lay forward onto it, or you could support yourself with your forearms. But as much as possible, use the props to support your body so that you don't have to do much work at all. In fact, the key here isn't to push, prod, or pull yourself into the pose, but actually to let go into it and let gravity and the posture do all of the work. Take a couple breaths here. And notice what is present for you, body and mind. Begin to move the breath throughout the body till it reaches the very edges of the skin, distilling the sensation from within. Let your heart be just a little heavier here. And if you feel the low back starting to arch, just a little zip of the hips towards the ribs to support the spine. Option to stay exactly as you are, or to begin to walk the shins out a little wider to about a 45-degree angle, pointing the toes right and left. And so you can stay as you are, but I'll reposition myself to the side so you can kind of see where we're heading. So we shifted from the toes back to the shins perpendicular. And again, the low back will really want to absorb this. And so as much as possible, a little tilt of the pelvis. You could even take your bolster, place it right underneath your abdomen and torso and upper body. Check back in with the breath. And if it's shallowed or jagged in any way, this is a chance for you to smoothen it out. In fact, you might count the length of the inhale and exhale so that they are perfectly even. The inhale is 4 seconds. Let the exhale be 4 as well. Last full breath here. Now, option here to stay as you are, or you could rewind the posture to the last iteration. Or if you're looking for a little bit more, take the toes back to touch. Shift your props entirely out and place your pelvis, your pubic bone entirely onto the mat. Coming into full Mandukasana or full frog here. The heels will want to lift, the feet will want to lift. So as much as possible, let the heels get heavy and return to the earth. Might bring a little more intensity to the outer hip as the thigh bone rotates in the hip socket. So if you feel a deep tensile stretch, stick with it. If you feel any pinchiness, then the thigh bone could be coming into bone contact. So you can always rewind the posture to where it's more sustainable. So you could rewind, take the shins out, lift the upper body and hips back up, or you could even come to the really wide-legged child's pose variation if you wish. So 3 variations for you to choose from. And it's natural for the body to feel a little bit of contractiveness to protect you. But if the posture is truly safe for the body with breath, the body will be able to let go. A little bit of a shorter hold for this one is it's mighty and intense. It's another 5 more. Now begin to use your hands to lift you back upright and draw the knees back together again. And I have 2 options for you. If you're craving a little, for me, I always feel like drawing the legs closer, just kind of balance out what I just did through the inner groin, all that opening. So you could revisit child's pose, more of an embryo variation with the knees drawn close, torso draped forward, your choice, arms forward or back. Or if you'd like something a little more sensational, you could crisscross the legs, place a block underneath your seat, and come to a little eagle pose. Or not eagle, but shoelace pose rather. So crisscrossing the legs, sitting onto a block, depending on which feels best in your body. And for those of you that are in shoelace, I'll let you know when to come out so that you can crisscross and head to the other side. In shoelace, you have option to stay upright, let the hips descend. You can also teeter forward. If you're craving a release to the posterior or back of the shoulders, you can even crisscross the arms and hug inward. All variations are welcomed. One isn't more or less, they're just different. If you're in shoelace with the legs crisscross, now's a great time to begin to unravel the legs, take a few stretches. You might extend the legs back or forward, and then eventually switch it out so the opposite leg is on top. Again, you've got options to stay upright through the spine, to fold forward, or to crisscross the arms, your choice. And if you're in embryo or the child's variation with the knees closer, then you can stay exactly as you are. For these last 4 or 5 breaths, often anywhere, whether it's in the body or letting go of a thought that cycles back through the mind. Slowly beginning to shift your way forward if you're in child's or embryo, unraveling the legs if you're in shoelace, and eventually making your way to a seated position. So a couple options here. You can come to cross-legged position with a block or a bolster underneath. You could come to kneeling with the block underneath your sits bones, whichever feels most inviting and sustainable, as we'll be here for probably a good 3 to 5 minutes. You could even choose a chair if that's more supportive for you. And then once you've found a sweet spot, start to settle in, grow tall through the spine. Roll out the shoulders, wiggle out the head and neck for a time or two, and make any last little adjustment. Then fully arrive, grow tall, telescope up and out of the spine, and then draw the right ear up and over towards the right shoulder. Encourage both shoulders to get heavy and to soften. Take a couple cycles of breath and notice how the inhale helps to inflate the front of the left side of the neck as well as the left side itself. And how this can serve almost like an internal massage. For a little added sensation, flip the left palm forward, extend the left arm slightly back, and you can even aim the fingertips towards the bottom left corners of the room. And again, if you need a little more sensation from there, you can traction the head up and over to the right side with the assistance of your right hand. Certainly not pulling down, but drawing it up and over. Continue to move the breath throughout the body. If it's comfortable for your left hand and left arm, flip the palm towards the back of the space, spin the thumb down, and tuck the hand behind the low back. Just let it rest effortlessly. If that bothers the shoulder in any way, just release the hand onto the thumb. And then reposition the head and neck diagonal and forward so that the head starts to draw closer towards the left under or the right underarm. We'll start to move the stretch into the back of the neck. And as you continue to breathe, can you breathe 360 degrees from within so that as the breath moves up and into the chest, it's not only into the front chest, but also into the back of the chest. You might start to feel the shoulder blades inflate with breath. And keep your left arm as is. And now take your right hand and place it just below your left collarbone. Press into the flesh slightly, gently, and drag it slightly down. This will help to create a little bit of an anchor. Then as slow and gently as you can, begin to tilt the head up and back. Make sure there's no compression into the back of the neck. So you still want to reach up and out of the head and neck, holding it up and then back. And you might start to notice the sensation move into the front of the neck and all the way into the collarbone and into the chest. Take a couple more rounds of breath. And as you breathe in, let the chest press into the hand into the chest. Feel all that softens upon the exhale. Few more rounds of breath, just like this. Soften as you breathe in. Soften again as you breathe out. Last inhale. Last exhale. Release the arms and allow the head to move gently, the chin forward and the chin towards the chest. Pause there a moment. Then with your inhale, return the head back upright. Notice how you feel left side compared to the right. Roll out the shoulders a couple times. You can even adjust the head and neck. And then extend the crown tall. Reach up and over towards the left side. Let the left ear, the head get heavy. The shoulders have started to shrug up around the ear. Soften them back towards the ear. Take a couple of rounds of breath here. Option to layer on by flipping the right palm forward, reaching it slightly back and towards the bottom right corners of the room. This will help to extend the fascial line. Keep the breath moving so you feel the left collarbone, or sorry, the right collarbone, the right side of the neck expand. And as you exhale, follow it to the bottom. Notice the response of the body as well as the mind. And now flip the right palm towards the back of the space. Tuck the hand behind the low back if that's comfortable for your shoulder. Otherwise, just simply release your right hand to the thigh. And as gently as can be, let the head tilt diagonally forward, left ear towards the left underarm until you start to feel a release not only through the right side of the neck, but also through the back of the neck and into the back of the shoulder. Now bring your left hand just below your right collarbone. Press into flesh, drag it slightly down. And then begin to tilt the head slowly up and back. Make sure you're still extending through the crown so there's no pinch through the left side of the neck. And then breathe in 360 degrees. Reach into the chest, reach into the upper back. Follow the next breath to the very top. But spill over all the way to the bottom. With care, release both arms. Allow the chin to fall forward towards the chest. Return the head back upright. Here you can roll out the head and neck, roll out the shoulders, or make any last little adjustments. And as you pause here, seated upright, we'll move into a very gentle twist. If you need to adjust the legs, feel free to do so. Otherwise, begin to gently rotate your torso open to the right side. Just a few rounds of breath, rotating the spine. Now that you have the torso rotated to the right side, stay as you are, but begin to slide your left arm down the length of the left thigh, even all the way to the floor. You can even place a block underneath the forearm if you wish. Let's just start to extend and lengthen the left side or the right side body here. You've also got options. You can take the right bicep alongside the cheek and ear and see how that feels. You can even wrap the right arm behind you, or just simply let the right arm rest onto the thigh. A little release through the lateral side body, a little rotation through the spine while working into the QL, or we call it quadratus lumborum, where you're likely feeling through the right side of the low back. And when these muscles get particularly tight, it can distort the alignment of the pelvis, the spine. This will just help to create a little more freedom and space. For these last 3, 4 breaths, feel the breath move across the entire right side body, standing you from within. And slowly rise all the way back up, rise tall. Notice how you feel right side compared to the left. And a little rotation and twist from the torso gently to the left side. We'll pause here for a few rounds of breath. And keeping the torso rotated to the left side, begin to walk your right arm down the right thigh, all the way to the floor for a little added support. And again, you could even have a block underneath the forearm, or even rest the arm onto the leg. And then any variation with the left arm, if you love the sensation of bicep alongside the cheek and ear, you can pause here and wrap the left arm behind you. Even rest the bicep alongside the head and neck if you wish. Just cradle the head. If the left hip has started to lift up, encourage it back towards the earth. Float the breath deep along the left side body till you start to notice the space in between the ribs. And now with care, return your body back upright. Sit up all through the spine and feel the balance. From there, begin to prepare yourself for Shavasana. So this could look like any shape. My favorite is Stonehenge for a little release to the low back and spine. This looks like to take your blocks, you can play around with this with different height settings. I kind of like the middle or the highest, and you want the blocks to be a good hip width apart, so not too wide. And stack your bolster right on top. A little support to the back of the legs. If you want any additional coverings or cushions, you can also do so. Just have everything within reach. And then slide your hips forward towards your props. Lay onto your back and drape your legs over your props. Again, if you want a little cushion for the head and neck, you can do so. Or eye pillow can be nice, extra covering, a little added blanket, or if there's some other posture that you would prefer, by all means, feel free to take it. We'll be here for about 5 minutes, give or take, so you can leave all responsibility of time to me. And if you prefer seated meditation, feel free to shift yourself back to your seat. Then begin to rest into the cadence of the breath. Allow it once again to captivate the mind. Agendas, to-do lists, they can all wait. This is your time to be fully off the hook, whether you're seated in meditation or reclining in rest. In whichever shape you're in, let go like you're floating through the sky or falling through water. Feeling resting into the essence that is you, beyond any definition of body or mind, perfect, whole, and complete as you are now. Om Namah Shivaya. Gurave Satchidananda Sai Nishprapanchaya Shantaya Nirvaya Tejase Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Begin to deepen back into the breath and feel your body begin to reawaken and come alive. If you decide you'd like more time to rest, feel free to stay as you are. Otherwise, take your sweet time and transition your way to seated. You can roll to the side or up and down the length of the spine. Once you arrive, bring your hands either into prayer or place them over your heart and bow slightly inward. And infuse the body with another few rounds of breath. Notice how you feel. And carry this practice, this connection to the breath, to yourself, to your intention, off the mat into your days as you live through your yoga. Thank you so much. Namaste.